Hello everyone. So today we're going to be building a game on JavaScript that is similar to Flappy Bird. I tried my best to kind of get the properties the same, where you avoid obstacles. Well, here you can move left and right as well, and as you can see, the score is accumulating at the top. And if you make a collision, then you start over. So let's get started. So before we get started, you're going to want to download Visual Studio Code. And you also want to go into the extensions and you want to download live server. Once you have live server installed, we can get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to set up our project. So let's add all of our files. So we're going to start off with an index.html. Next, we're going to need a app.js. This is where the JavaScript goes. Then styles.css. And then finally, we're going to need a folder named images, and that's going to contain the image for our character. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and drop that image here and drop it here in the folder, and I'll leave a link in the description for the collection of images that I have. Okay, so first things first, let's go into the index.html. We'll start off by doing an exclamation mark, and let's name this game. We are going to link a style sheet, and we're going to reference it. Styles.css. We're going to go into the body. At the very bottom, we'll write our script tag, and the source will be app.js. Let's make a div for the score. We're going to give it an ID of score. And we're going to make our canvas. This is where the game is going to be played. We're going to give it an ID of canvas so we can reference it. We'll give it a width and height of 500. Next, let's go into our styles. We're going to grab that canvas and we're going to give it a background color of green. And at the body, let's give it a margin of 0 and auto. And overflow would be hidden. Okay, let's save that. Okay, so now our canvas is ready, and let's go ahead and take a look at it. Go into your index.html. Well, first of all, make sure everything is saved. You're going to right click and go to open with live server. And here you see the canvas, 500 by 500 with the background of green. So next what I want to do is I want to draw my character on the screen. So I have an image here and I want to place him onto the screen. Let's go to our app.js. So I'm going to copy the code from my existing project and I'm going to paste it over here so you can see, and we'll go over it together. If you would like the completed project, I'll leave the link in the description for my GitHub. So right now we want to add the character on the screen. This constant refers to this HTML element and it grabs it by the ID of canvas. So if we go here, we see the ID of canvas. So we're referencing this HTML element. Here we want to start drawing things onto the screen. So we're going to use this as a variable, and we're going to use that later. We're going to use this as our player, and we're going to set it to a new image. And the source of that image is going to be the image in this file path, which is images BA fly, which it refers to this image right here. So our player is going to start off at these X and Y coordinates at 0, 0, and they're gonna be changing. So that's why they're set as variables. And then finally, we want the player to load on the screen. This is what we're drawing onto the canvas. And draw image is taking what are you drawing and on what coordinates. So we're drawing the player, which is here, and we're putting it on the x and y coordinates of 0, 0. So we'll save that. And here we can open with live server again. It's just going to open a new window, but this is just going to keep refreshing it each time that you save it, so you don't have to. So as you can see, here's our player. So next we want to make the character move. We'll put this line of code here. We're actually going to split this up here. Equals 0, and I'm going to make it its own variable just so everything is clear. This is the variable that holds which key is pressed, and this is the variable that will hold the state of the key, if it's currently being pressed or if it's released. Right now it's set to 0, but it's going to change. And now these functions right here, so let's look at it line by line. So this is an event listener on the whole document. I'm listening to see if there's a key being pressed on key down. And we're calling a function and we're putting in the event as a parameter, and we're setting the key state to key down, and then we're taking the key that's being pressed and we're going to save it into key, and we're accessing that by the event. So if I press W, the key state will change to key down, and the key will turn to W. Now this one handles listening on a key release or key up. And here, if the key is released, it'll change the state of the key to key up. Okay, let's finish this. 5. This is a function that runs at an interval of every 5 milliseconds, and it's set right here by this 5 here. So right here, this line of code is to make sure that the player only moves when the key is being pressed. Okay. Later, I'm going to show you if we remove this code and if I press the button, the player will continuously move. But right now, we only want him to move when we're pressing the button. Okay. So if the key that's being pressed is W, then the Y coordinate is going to change by 1, and so on. It's going to show each and every direction. This line of code here, it clears the image when it moves. I'm going to show you what happens if we comment this out. But right now, let's check it out. Let's save it, and let's go to the game. And notice if I press WASD, it'll start moving around, and if I let it go, it'll stop moving. Let's go back into the app and let's comment out this code. Let's save it and see what happens now. It won't clear the screen, okay? And that does not look good. If you want to add that type of functionality in your game, you can, but I do not want that. So we need this line of code so it actually clears the screen. And again, it does it in intervals of every 5 milliseconds. All right, let's put that back. Right now, our player is moving. Let's go ahead and let's start drawing some obstacles. Okay, so we're gonna put this right above the set interval. Okay, so I'm gonna generate rectangles and I want them to be at random. I don't want the same type of rectangles to spawn. So with this function, I'm basically choosing a random number. So I'm naming it choose random, and I need 2 parameters. I need the minimum and the maximum. And with this right here, math.random, this will return a number between 0 and 1. But I need a number a lot bigger than that. So that's why I'm multiplying it by the difference of max and minimum, and I'm adding the minimum just to make sure that I'm falling within that range. Okay? So all this does is just gives me a random number. That's all it does, and it gives me within the range that I want. So I'm gonna set an array of obstacles, and I'm gonna push random obstacles into that array. And this is the function that creates those obstacles. So notice here we have obstacles is referring to this variable here, and we're gonna push these properties into this array. So the x coordinate is gonna be a random number between 500 and 1500, and the y coordinate is going to be a random number between 0 and 300. And you can change these values if you like. The width, they're all going to be 50 and a height of 100. So basically these are creating my squares. They're creating the width and the height of it and where exactly they're going to appear. This right here, this creates an obstacle every 1000 milliseconds. Now we're going to need this line of code right below where it's drawing the player. Let's paste it right here. And there's something else that we need. We have to close it, I believe. All right, so here, this is the style of the rectangle that's being drawn. This is the style, and this is the rectangle that's actually being drawn. So here's the for loop. And I is less than obstacles dot length, so the number of obstacles in this variable right here, and we're going to increment it by 1 each time, and we're going to take that obstacle and we're going to grab it from that array, which is right here, and we're going to take that obstacle and we're going to take the x-axis and we're going to move it by -1 every 5 milliseconds. So that's what creates the rectangles moving towards the left. And again, since it's on a set interval, it's going to keep doing that every 5 milliseconds. And then here, we're filling our rectangle, and then we're grabbing the x coordinate, the y coordinate, the width, and the height of the obstacle. And here it is. The x and y coordinates are chosen by random, and the width and the height are 50. Okay, and then here we're going to close off this for loop. Let's save this. And let's go back into our index.html. Oh, I'm sorry, we can go right back to the live server. And here you see random rectangles being generated. Okay. But right now, nothing happens if you collide with them. So right now, we're gonna handle the collision event. Okay, so we'll handle the collision event right here. All right, let's take a look at this. Here's a function, we name it handle collision, and it's gonna take the parameter of obstacle. So it's gonna check the obstacle, and it's gonna tell me if we're colliding or not. If it's false, then we're not colliding, but if it's true, we are. So here we're determining the corners of the image, and I'll show you where I got these values from. So if I open up my, if I get info on my picture here, here you can see that the dimension is 85 by 75. Okay, and this is important. So if your dimensions are different, you're gonna wanna change it accordingly. Okay, so my dimensions are 85 by 75, and this is why here player left, we're gonna set the corner of x, and x is its x coordinate. And then x plus 85, we're going to go up to the right side. So again, this is all, we're basically looking at all 4 corners. Here's x, and then x plus 85 because our image is 85 on the x-axis, and then player top y, and then player bottom y plus 75. So these are the 4 corners of our player, and these are the 4 corners of the obstacle. This if statement right over here checks to see if they're colliding. So basically here, if the bottom of the player is less than the top of the obstacle, so basically, let's see here. The bottom of the player would be here, right? And the top of the obstacle would be here, all right? So if the bottom is less than here, then that means we're not colliding. Same thing for all of these, okay? If the top of the player is more than the bottom of the obstacle, then they're not colliding, okay? So all of these statements right here should be false, meaning they're not colliding. So all of these should give me false. However, if the player bottom is more than the obstacle top, then that means there is a collision, there is an overlap going on here. So then instead of returning false, it's going to return true. Okay. Now we need to put that handle collision, we need to check it in our set interval here. Because we want to check every 5 milliseconds, is there a collision happening? So here we're going to go ahead and stick this in here, right under this line. So right here, this is going to return a Boolean. This is going to return true or false because I'm calling my function here. I'm calling handle collision and I'm giving it the parameter of obstacle. So it's taking the obstacle, it's taking that as a parameter, passing it into the function. And my function is supposed to return either true or false. Here's my function. And again, if these are false, then that means they're not colliding. So this is going to return false. Okay. So right now, if false, we're not going to do anything. But if true, we're going to execute this code here. Okay. So if there is a collision, if this returns true, then we're going to reload. But if it's false, then we're not going to do anything. So let's save that. Let's go back here. And if we collide, it should reset. And it works. So far everything's working well. Let's handle scoring. Let's put some scoring onto the game. So we can put this right over here. Paste. Okay, so first we're going to start off with a score of 0. And then here's our set interval function. And this function is going to execute every millisecond. So every millisecond that the player does not collide, we're going to add 1 to the score. And then here, we're going to get that element, that score element. Let's go back into the index here. Here's the score element. What it's going to do, it's going to take the inner HTML and it's going to stick in this text right here. The score is, and it's going to print out the score. Let's save it and let's test it out. Okay. Notice every millisecond that goes by, I get a point. And if I collide, I start over. Now let's do one more thing. Let's increase the difficulty of this game. Let's go ahead and comment this line out. I'm going to comment this, and we need to comment this as well. Okay, and now if we save, here, it moves even if you're not holding the key. So oops, it makes it a little more difficult. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.